This is Tuna on Toast.
Tom Morello joining Tuna on Toast at Stryker. We're going to start out with this, man. I am very, very upset with you. I am very, very angry with you, and I have to get it off my chest straight away.
Well, unburden yourself, young man.
I listened to you on Sirius as a radio DJ. I listened to the interviews you do with artists. You are one of the, if not the greatest guitarists in my lifetime. And you're also one of the best hosts in my lifetime. And I hate you for that because I'm supposed to be a good host, Tom.
Oh, dude, that's funny. I just like all that stuff. I just pretend like I'm sitting with friends at the Rainbow. That's really the whole thing. There's not anything more to it than that. There is no secret sauce.
Well, that is the secret sauce. The first thing that I was told when I got into radio, which was 28 years ago, and I got into it by accident, the guy in Tucson said, pretend it's just you and I hanging out in the room and have a conversation. Yeah. And so I took that note, and I know I still need to get a lot better at this job, but I've taken that note and have attempted to apply it for all these years.
Yeah, that's funny because when I first started doing the pod, there's no like bone in my body. It was like one day I hope to have a podcast and a radio show. I was just like desperate for shit to do during lockdown to keep myself from losing my mind. So I had this idea for the podcast. I'm going to write these long political treatises and this, that, and the other one was like, or we just pretend we're at the Rainbow. That turned out to be the winning formula right there.
Tom, let's just say an executive producer, show creator from Hulu or a network says, we have a game show that's a combination of, say, The Price is Right and Card Sharks, and you need to be the ringleader of this whole thing. You're going to be the host. Would you be interested in that?
Absolutely not.
Okay.
The only show that I might want to host, like sort of in retirement 30 years from now, is to be like sort of the Judge Judy for rock bands.
Okay.
Like an arbitrator. Like, bring me, okay, what's the problem today? Okay. And you sort of like sort it out. Okay, the bass player is correct here, bang the gavel, and then the band has to go on and do what you say.
That is such a good idea. Like, I don't know if you're going to get Serge, Darren, John, and Chavo in there for the pilot.
That would be a good one.
That would sell immediately, Tom.
That would be a good one. That would be a good one.
The Atlas Underground Fire comes out on October 15th. From the first song, Harlem Hellfighter, to the very last track on there, which I think was like 7 to 9 minutes long.
Yeah.
I was so locked into this thing. Can you just give me, let's start out with the big bullet points. When did you start making this thing?
Sure. So this is a pandemic album. From the time I was 17 years old till March of 2020, I had constantly been writing and recording and playing shows, and all that came to a screeching halt. In the midst of this plague and the anxiety and the fear and whatnot, I just didn't know that there would ever be another show, or I might never write another song. There was sort of anxiety and depression and this kind of ennui. And I have a studio at my house, but I don't know how to work it. So normally an engineer sits here and they let me touch the volume knob. That's the only one that they allow me to touch. So it was really looking at this complete drought of music for the first time in my adult life. And, as someone who has always kind of identified as a musician, as an activist, I was neither. I was a caretaker and a plumber and a window fix, like, everybody was during that time. And inspiration, for this came from a very, very unlikely place. I was reading an interview or some Twitter feed of Kanye West, where he was bragging about, recording the vocals for a couple of his albums onto the voice memo of his phone.
Okay.
And I thought, well, if it's good enough for Kanye vocals, maybe I can record guitar. So I just took my iPhone, set it on a chair in front of my amp, and started ripping. And it sounded fantastic. And then I began sending these riffs to producers and engineers and artists around the world. And all of a sudden, this cloistered, solitary bunker became like sort of musical pen pal central, and I mean the places, some of the places where this record was recorded outside of the studio were, Springsteen was in New Jersey, Bring Me the Horizon was in Brazil, in the UK, Chris Stapleton was in Nashville, Mike Posner summited Everest between the beginning and the end of the recording of the song. He was recording vocals in Nepal at 25,000 feet.
What?
I kid you not. He summited Everest. For real. check his.
I knew he did that, but so he was hearing the music you were creating based on the music. Mike Posner, let's take him right now. Love the song. He's put lyrics to it and would send it back to you. Then what did you do?
Well, correct. I mean, he was sometimes hard to reach because he was like on the back of a Sherpa. You know what I mean? Like, so so that was it was a collaborative effort at times. You know, I would send him at something when we were kind of headed towards the deadline of the record. I'm like, please check the latest mix. And he's like, right now, bro, I've got like 3 tanks of oxygen, and I'm just trying to stay alive at Camp 4 or something.
Right.
And so we would go back and forth. Damian Marley was in Jamaica. Dennis from Refused was in Sweden, and Sama Abdul Hadi was a great young Palestinian DJ. She was in Palestine during that. So I was 100% alone, but forging this kind of collaborative community around the globe. And this record, let me just tell you, it was not about, oh, I've got ideas and I must be creative. It was a life raft. It was an antidepressant.
Wow.
It was just a way in the middle of every crazy day to feel sort of connected beyond the plague,
Tom, I'll tell you how I felt when I heard Ollie Sykes on your song, Let's Get the Party Started.
Yeah.
I got chills from it. And
that's a jam.
It's one of those jams where it makes you feel good and jump around, but then when you listen closer, it really hits your heart and hits your brain. What did you think when you got his lyrics for the very first time and how he sounded?
Yeah, so first of all, Bring Me the Horizon. I love the fact that they just unapologetically wave the flag of hard rock and metal, and they don't care, and I don't care, and we don't care, and it's awesome.
Yeah.
And so I sent them some riffs, and the one thing that I thought about this record was, like, in order to connect, it has to be authentic. So this was not a time where my mindset was, I'm going to write, I need 12 songs about labor unions in Guatemala or something. Like, it's got to be real. It's got to be from this time. And his song that he wrote, which is, called Let's Get the Party Started, which both on the surface feels like, hey, it's about, like, when you're confronted with a mountain of anxiety, you could party yourself to death. Like, you could take that road and just kind of go, like, I don't care and I'm out. And so, there's a weight to it in a way. And I think it's one of my favorite songs on the record. And I think that's a song that we're going to be enjoying listening to in my house for something.
I listened to it over and over and over again. Like, as Tom and I are hanging out right here, the album is not out yet. So thank you for sending me the tracks.
Yep.
I think it's number 10, Charmed, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Oh, it's an electronic song.
Yeah,
it is so good. First,
with a lot of electric guitar in it. Too,
yes, and when it starts, Tom, you have me totally locked in on this song. Who is this DJ? I'm not that familiar with him.
Yeah,
Protohype.
Yeah, Protohype. I was sitting. Sometimes I sit around, like, how I would do this. I would sit down with my phone. I record a bunch of riffs, like, on a day, and I'd kind of go, and I would literally just sit here, before I had to go back to, keeping the grandmas alive and keeping the kids from going crazy, and be like, who am I going to send this to today? Like, sometimes it was just like as random as that. And sometimes I'd be going through, like, Spotify or call up some friends who are younger and hipper than me and go, like, what are you listening to right now? What's the last thing you listened to? And Protohype was on one of those lists, and I listened to his stuff, and I'm like, dude can rock. Like, I knew that he had, like, rock in his background. And so I just called him up and was just like, hey, can I send you a bunch of riffs? And he was like, yeah, dude. And so we rocked that jam. And the one thing that you may not know about that song is there's 3 generations of Morellos on it. Both my when you hear, like, there's "Let's Go,"
yes,
like, that's a kid. Then there's another one that goes, "What's next?" and that's another kid. And then my mom is my mom's voice at 97 years old. She's like, what in the world is dubstep?
That's your mom? That's Mary?
That's Mary, yeah.
Oh my God. That's so good. Tom, I don't know if you care about getting awards or Grammys or whatever, but if these people at the Grammys, and I've worked with them 4 years in a row, like host backstage, I'm not a voter or anything, I hope they recognize how great the collection of these songs are. And I'm not just saying it because you're sitting here. Yeah. It has inspired me more than any other album in a very, very long time, especially when I hear, like, Grandson on there, and then you got Chris Stapleton and the dude from Refused. It really feels good, Tom.
Well, thanks. Like, my opinion of the Grammys is, like, I totally disregard them until I'm nominated, and I'm all excited about it.
Tom Morello will be hosting next year's Grammys.
I'm like, that is a ridiculous show. Like, oh, I got nominated. I hope I win.
Right.
I'll be very candid about
Hey, so where are you, as we're, believe it or not, towards the end of 2021, you are planning to hit the road with Rage for a lot of songs. Do you,
Yeah,
as a group, do you still feel comfortable that you're going out and doing it?
Yeah, well, I mean, fingers crossed. It's like I've got a lot of friends who are out now, and I text them constantly, like, "What is it?" I will see the Instagram feeds, and it looks like nothing's ever changed out there. But I've always been, read it like as someone who has a 97-year-old mom and a 90-year-old like mother-in-law. I don't want a kid to somebody come to my show and go home and kill their grandma. You know what I mean? So I want to do it in a way that feels like it's safe for band, for crew, and for people in the crowd. But very much looking forward to 2022, and fingers crossed that all goes well.
When you've got all these new songs, and then you've got these Audioslave songs, and the solo record stuff, and if I said, Tom, you got to go play 15 Rage songs with no practice, could you do it like that?
Oh, there's a lot of muscle memory in those. You know what I mean? There's a lot of muscle memory in those. Those come back pretty quick. I don't know that I could get all 15 note for note right now.
Right.
But if you gave me 45 minutes, I might be able to get that together. Yeah.
There's a few things, and you do this so wonderfully when you're interviewing bands, and it's something that I attempt to do. I don't know if I do it as well as you. Is I like to ask questions that I think I know the answers, and maybe they were given once or twice, but they're not stuck in my brain. And now that you're here, if you tell me, I'm going to know. When you finished high school, was it within 3 or 4 months that you went to college? You went to Harvard, or was there a long period of time?
Yeah, no, I went the next fall.
Was there any part of you, because you have a great connection with your mom, that was like, I feel bad that I'm leaving her. We have such a strong bond.
Yeah, well, I mean, I thought about going to I grew up in the northern suburbs of Chicago, so I thought about going to Northwestern too, which would have been closer. But like, no one from my town had ever been accepted to Harvard before. No one had ever applied either. So don't get me. I may not have been a particular genius. No one had ever thought of applying before. That was sort of, but I thought like if the one black kid in town is the first guy that gets accepted to Harvard and doesn't go, like that's not you. That didn't fit. So, I did think though, like I had a dog who was like, I was an only child, like who was like sort of my brother and near the family. But I think it's important to leave the nest. It's important to get a perspective on where you're from by getting the hell out of there. And there was a lot that I wanted to get away from, and now there's a lot that I appreciate having gotten perspective from having left.
Did you get good grades right away at Harvard? Was it tough for you?
I did, but it was super. Like high school for me was easy, and it was a really Libertyville Public High School was a really good high school, but it wasn't super challenging for me. But Harvard was, I mean, crazy. I'll tell you my first night there. So I go there, I'm all fired up. I'm gonna be political, and I'm gonna learn things. And so I take a course. My first class is modern political ideologies. My first assignment is to read Thomas Paine's The Rights of Man.
Okay,
that's my first assignment. So I'm fired up. I'm 18 years old, and I'm reading Thomas Paine's The Rights. I go in the library. It's 8 o'clock. I'm like, great, and that's then it's like 12:45 a.m. and I'm about a third of the way through this book that I have to finish for the morning, and I got another book I got to read, and I have more classes tomorrow. I'm like, Libertyville Public High School underprepared me for this shit, for this Ivy League shit.
Yeah.
And so, but I'm also a stupidly driven person, and I would not allow myself to not do as well in high school. So I just basically took everything out. I just played guitar and I studied, and that was it until I don't recommend it. I wish, kind of looking back, I had a social life. But
did you feel the competitiveness of your fellow students there like you felt in high school, or was there any competition there?
I never felt competitive with any students in high school or anywhere else. I always just kind of, I tried to do well, but I wasn't like one of those. I knew at 19 years old I wanted to play rock and roll.
You did at 19. You knew, even though you're at Harvard.
Yeah, I knew, and it was a bit of a conflict because I started playing late. I started playing when I was 17 years old.
Right. Yep.
So I was a beginner kind of when my freshman year, but I practiced a lot, and I had a calling. Like it was a real calling. It wasn't a decision. It was like, I know I was good at a bunch. I could write, I could do art. I was interested in politics stuff, but I just one day I remember I was practicing in the little rehearsal studio near the laundry machine and the foosball table over there, and it was kind of like the skies part, and like, you are a guitar player, and that's the end of that. Wow. And I was like, okay, but now I had to like I was in school, but I went home that first summer and I auditioned for some Chicago rock bands. And I was 19 years old. I wasn't old enough to drink in a bar, and I got into these two bands wanted me that were gigging, and I was like, I could do it now. Like I could be the hot shot Chicago guitar, like right now.
Right.
And it was a real temptation. It was a real crossroads. I had to decide whether to, because I was like, hey, can I be in your band for this summer? And then I'll go back and like, no, dude, like
it's not like a summer job at Pizza Hut or something.
I want a summer job. But I decided to stay in school. And
you decided, or was it you and your mom together?
My mom was always super supportive of whatever.
That's awesome, Tom.
Crazy notion I had. Yeah.
And then when you were done with school, how old were you when you got to LA?
I guess 22.
How'd you know where to live and where in this city?
I had zero life skills, dude. Like I knew I knew all about like Noam Chomsky and Hegel and Marx and whatnot.
Yeah.
But I didn't know my only job experience, how I worked I got a lot of scholarship stuff to go to Harvard, but my job experience was working at the Renaissance Fair in the summers. So
what'd you do at the Renaissance Fair?
I juggled, and I was a wandering minstrel, and I was like, like an actor and whatnot in tights. So my resume was juggling. It was like Ivy League degree plus juggler and
guitarist,
pirate shanty
right.
guy and whatnot. So when I moved to Hollywood in '86, I was unemployable. Like I was doing temp, not even temp work. I was doing like calling people, trying to sell them garbage bags and stuff at $1 an hour or whatever that was.
Right.
There were challenges.
Who was the first? You're out here in LA. Who was the first like real rock star that you met? Not they were gonna be one, but it was like happening for them in the 80s time.
The first rock star I saw and I did not meet was Ozzy Osbourne shambling down at some like late night restaurant. I'm like, holy shit, that's Ozzy. And he was just sort of like, I don't know what particular state of his life he was in then, but he was shambling. I was like, that's gosh darn Ozzy Osbourne.
Right. Yeah.
I don't remember, like the first rock star I met was probably, no, I'm gonna tell you, the first rock star I met was Perry Farrell. And he wasn't a rock star yet, but he was, they had made Nothing Shocking, but Nothing Shocking hadn't come out. And I snuck into a Jane's rehearsal, and I was a big fan of them as a local band. He was a rock star.
Of course. And so when you snuck in and you watched Jane's Addiction rehearsal, even though as skilled as you are now on guitar, and you were still early in your guitar playing days, did you say, holy crap, whatever I do now has got to be as good or better than that?
Well, they were it. They were, because what they did, along with a couple other bands, I'd credit Soundgarden and Living Colour on sort of a short list, is they redeemed hard rock metal music. Like all of us who loved hard rock music, but were somewhat embarrassed by like the devil stuff and the groupie stuff and like that, all of a sudden there were bands that were kicking my ass just as hard as Sabbath and AC/DC and Led Zeppelin. Oh. But there was like an artistic and intellectual content and a poetic content to it. And so I was all in on Jane's. I'm sorry, but you asked a specific question that I
like. Were they so good when you walked in that all you were like taken aback? Like,
that rehearsal was, I don't know, they were, but early on, the singer of my band Lockup, I was in a band before.
Yeah, you guys got signed, right? To Geffen? Was that Geffen?
Yeah. But the singer of Lockup, Brian Grillo, was friends with Perry Farrell, and so they were playing New Year's Eve. This would have been New Year's Eve '88, maybe something like that. Downtown, and they asked Lockup not to open up for them, but to impersonate them.
Oh my God.
So the lights go down.
Yeah.
The crowd roars, and out on stage comes me in a Dave Navarro wig. And we play, and the singer's got like dreads and the drum, and we play Pigs in Zen, like to the best of our best of our limited ability.
Yeah.
But I remember the feeling. Like I'd been to a lot of shows, but I remember the feeling that I got from the crowd. There are bands that people like, there are bands that people love, and then there are bands that people believe in. And the intensity off of that, it wasn't for me. I was an imposter.
You were Dave Navarro with the had a wig on.
I was an imposter. They didn't, but I felt like that kind of like almost sort of like religious intensity. And I remember as we played half the song, lights went out, they came out and finished the show. And I remember going like I've never been in a room with that before. And I hope to one day, be able to try to create something that creates a feeling like that.
And you have for many, many years. I give a damn about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't apologize for that because I root for the athletes that I loved as a kid to get into the Hall of Fame and the musicians. And Rage Against the Machine, Jane's Addiction, some of the most influential bands. What do we have to do to get you and them in?
Well, dude, I'm in the room.
I know.
So I'm in the room, and I've gotten Jane's on the ballot a few times. Rage has been on the ballot. It's like my take is that I will say this, that the reason why they let me in the room is because I complained so much about how horrible the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame was. And to their credit, they will let me in to have a voice at that table.
And you've inducted a couple bands in there. Clash and Kiss, was it? Right? No.
I've inducted the Clash and Kiss,
right.
and I've advocated for a number of bands that have gotten in that might not have otherwise had that voice at the table. But for me, like the problem is it's systemic in that there's many more bands that deserve to be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame than can be just simply because of procedural stuff. I don't think that anyone in that room is like, I hate Rage Against the Machine, I don't think it should be in, but only X number can get in a year. And then every year there's a new number that are available to be nominated, and so that takes up chairs at the table.
Okay.
And some artists who got in with one band get in again as a solo artist, which takes another chair. So it's like there's, I think, procedural stuff which are stopping the right thing. But I would love for Jane's Addiction to get in.
And Rage Against the Machine. You don't have to say it for yourself, but Rage Against the Machine should be in. Before your debut album, were you and the guys from Rage, were you playing like almost every night in LA, or is it more of a weekly thing in LA? Yeah, we were. I mean, here's the thing: is like there was a scene then, which was vibrant, but it was also transitional. It was just as the Nirvana and the Pearl Jam records were boiling. They had not boiled over, but they were boiling. And there was a real different mindset in record companies where there was this kind of genre of music that couldn't be A&R'd in the way that they had A&R couldn't be sort of like prior to the ascent of Nirvana and Pearl Jam. Record companies, I think, thought, here's how we do it. We've got a way to do it, and it goes like this. After that, they were like, we don't know what's happening. We just know it's selling a lot of records, so we'd like to be involved in it. So Tool was, a local band, and they had gotten, a record deal offer after their 8th show because like it was crystal clear that like something was going on. Then we opened up. We were friends with those guys, from roommates and whatnot. We opened up for Tool at Jabberjaw in 91 or 92, early 92. And then we got a record deal offer after our 2nd show. So 2 shows. So you didn't have to go into a room at a record company and they're like, guys, let's see you play some music. No, though we did end up in some rooms like that were just like horror. As the transition was happening, there was still a lot of the dinosaurs, before the mammals could completely take over. Right. There were a number of dinosaur rooms that were just so crazy. You'd be like, you're not reading the room very well today, sir. You're not, but anyway, so it was then we were sort of gigging and that. But here's the thing: is like I had a record deal before, and I knew that it was bullshit. Like it didn't matter. It didn't make my life better. It made my life worse. So it's simply the fact that you're offered a record. Like everybody back home in Illinois is like, oh my gosh, they must be millionaires. They were offered. No, it's like when I got my lockup record deal, my life got a lot worse after having that. I was poorer. Okay. I felt worse about my creativity and like than I had when I was just in the club band. So simply dangling that didn't carry any weight at all. There was, a lot of sort of other stuff that I felt was more important than simply having a record deal. But anyway, so but it was a time when there was such a healthy sort of, it reminded me of sort of like maybe sort of 77 in in the UK with the punk bands, where before punk sort of solidified into it sounds like this. You know what I mean? Like it was just bands that could be anything, and that class
of those years, which you could say, maybe from Smashing Pumpkins to Nine Inch Nails to Chili Peppers to Rage, Tool, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Alice in Chains, Soundgarden, like
Love
that,
them all. Yeah.
was like sort of the first wave of bands that had just sort of been doing their own thing in anonymity, and then we were the ones that toured together on the first couple of Lollapaloozas before it became, here's the new thing, and it needs to sound like this, and it needs to be marketed in this way.
You played one of the first, if not the first Lollapalooza, and you did
the second one. We played side stage in '92, just in LA, and then opened main stage in '93.
And you played the very first Coachella back in 1999 as well.
Weird, yeah.
Tom,
and Coachella was so unsuccessful, they asked for half the money back.
No.
Yeah.
Did you give it to them?
We did, because they were friends. It was Golden Voice. They had booked lockup show, like they had booked every back alley show from day one.
I was
there.
They
were the punk rock promoters. Like they were they were just like bros, who did the punk rock show.
What a nice move to give it back. Then you play like in 2007 or so.
We should have asked for a piece of the festival. That's what we should have. I'm not much of a businessman.
Unbelievable. Oh my God. 92, 96, 99. It's new music. Tom Morello. Then 2002, you got Audioslave going on. And again, this is maybe just answer it quickly. Who said, hey, let's get you three incredible gentlemen and let's work with Chris Cornell?
Yeah, well, the funny thing is like there was a, Tim and Brad and I knew that we wanted to play together, and there were some interesting offers like from our record company, like, okay, we've got a great idea. You should be so and so's backup band, and I will not name, but there were some interesting names that were like
in the rock under the rock umbrella.
Ish, there was more. They were like, here's a commodity, and there's a way if we plug in. So, and we were just like, oh my gosh, like, why don't you just hold on, like, just hold your horses. But we spent a lot of time over at Rick Rubin's house, and we wanted whatever we were going to do. We wanted to work with Rick, and we spent a lot of time listening to Bad Motorfinger, which had been a really important formative record for everybody, and particularly the song Slaves and Bulldozers, which when you crank that thing up on Rick speakers, we were like, that guy, like, that is just insane, like what that guy is saying and doing on that song. So Rick and I went to go talk to him, and Chris was living in Ojai, which is about an hour and plus outside of LA.
Chris Cornell was in Ojai.
Yeah, Chris Cornell lived in Ojai. He's a singer of Soundgarden, and which had disbanded, and it was sort of unknown what Chris was up to at the time. And the thing that like came through on the Bad Motorfinger record and throughout Chris's sort of earlier lyrics was it was really dark, and it was like spooky, and it was kind of like, I don't know who this person is based on the things that he is saying in these songs. So Rick and I go, and Rick we go up there in my like old van, like I have an old Chevy van, and Rick doesn't go anywhere for anybody. He normally, if he goes somewhere, it's in a Rolls Royce that's in another Rolls Royce. I mean, like he's not trying to go anywhere, right? So he's in my van, so he must be serious. So we drive up there. We get a late start, so we get up there, and it's kind of, it's kind of darkening, and there's woods around. And of course, Chris lives on the last loneliest mansion on the last loneliest hill, and it's shadowy and it's dark. And we pull up in this kind of like Spanish style, home with a couple motorcycles out front in this long winding stairway. And we pull in, and then the big kind of front door, like the super tall front doors, they open like Addams Family style, like nobody opening the doors, and out walks Chris, 6'3", lanky of frame and dark of decorum,
supermodel look at the same time,
he starts sort of like loping slowly down the stairs, and Rick turns to me and goes, let's get the fuck out of here. He's like, our souls are at stake. I'm like, I don't know, that guy's got a vibe. It's I feel you. Fortunately, we did not chicken out, and we managed to be in a band called Audioslave for about 6 years and made records, and I'm very proud of it.
You made 3 studio full lengths, and I think you guys did you go to Cuba with?
Yeah, we were the first American rock and roll band to ever play in the country of Cuba. It was really great to be in a band with Chris, and and I never, while he was a friend and a bandmate, I never stopped being a fan and being in awe of just his his musicianship, and his, like, it's a really unique combination of talents in one person. First of all, to be able to sing like that in the top whatever echelon of singers ever in any genre, and then to be that kind of songwriter who both is able to fearlessly play the heaviest music but write a beautiful Beatles-like ballad, and then to look like that. Like, it's a crazy combination. It was just a real honor to know and love Chris.
I don't know if you feel this, Tom, but I do. Like, I love Audioslave. I loved Audioslave from the first second I heard one of your songs. As we sit here in 2021, I don't think you guys I think you've become almost Audioslave has become almost underrated. Do you feel that at all?
I don't think about it that much. I mean, I think the one thing that we've never particularly looked to doing is kind of curating the catalog, and that's sort of one of the reasons why there's not like a bunch of reissues that come out constantly and things like that. But I look back on that time really, really fondly, and the tremendous adventures that we had, around the planet, and just getting that. Like, again, I was a huge fan when I was in Lockup, that band from a million years ago. Like, the rule is when you're in the band and you're the one driving the van, you get to pick the music. So when I was the one driving the van, it was always those first sound, the EPs, like the cassettes, Screaming Life, and those cassettes, and are driving everybody else crazy. Like, why is that guy screaming? He's screaming so much. And I'm like, it's awesome, dude. Little did I know that one day I would know and love and tour the world with Chris. So
right. All right. Tom Morello, again, the Atlas Underground Fire comes out on October 15th. Song after song after song will hit you over the head. I love the track, but I don't know if I mentioned the track with Phanogram. And real quick before I let you go, he's on your record, so you must love him. I am a huge fan of Grandson.
Sure.
How did he end up on your radar, and what did he bring to the table for Hold the Line?
Yeah, Grandson reached out a couple of years ago to ask me to do a remix of his song Blood Water.
Yeah, Blood Water.
And then that sort of introduced me to his catalog, and I was like, that dude's awesome. Like, he's got clearly has the Holy Spirit of rock and roll in him, but he also has like an intellect and a point of view, and it's like the kind of thing that I really love and appreciate in rock. So when I was making this record, I was like, let's do a jam from scratch, dude. And he was happy to do it. And that was actually one of the only songs on this record that was recorded pre-pandemic. That's one of the only guitar. I don't know if we even talked about it. Like, I recorded all the guitars on my phone.
Into your phone.
This record. Yeah, into my phone on this record. And so that was one of the only guitars that was actually recorded.
Did he come to your house for that?
Yeah.
He told me, just so you know, he said he was so nervous when he came to your house to do the song, and he because he such a big fan. And that song, man, I don't know if there's a way you can see how many times I've listened to each song. Man, I love Hold the Line so much. He's so good.
That song he's great. It's a jam. I mean, it's like it delivers the goods, and it was a real pleasure. Like, my take is that the electric guitar is the greatest instrument ever invented by humankind. But it's an instrument that doesn't just have a past, it has a future. Wow. And that's one of the reasons why I make these Atlas Underground records that are these collaborative affairs where, it's younger artists like Phanogram and Grandson and Protohype and Fem, who I love.
Love Fem.
And Bring Me the Horizon. And it's a way of some of those artists weren't born when, Rage played Coachella in 2000, and it's a way of sort of inflicting my sort of guitar vision on the present and the future, while unapologetically playing sort of Marshall Stack Fury, but kind of like seeing what the future is for the guitar. That to me is really important, because it's such a, like, I don't think that it should go in the same way that I love the saxophone. The saxophone certainly hasn't disappeared, but it should not be an instrument for jazz clubs. It should be an instrument for arenas and stadiums, now and forever.
Yeah, I love that. Tom, you're one of those human beings when it comes to being a musician that has inspired me so much over so many years. And when it comes to taking a stand, you have inspired me to use my voice, and it's okay to do it as long as you really, really, really believe in it. So thank you.
Keep up the good work, and I appreciate you continuing to fly the flag of good music as you have for a long time, and keep that up, man.
I will.
Appreciate you. Yeah.
Thank you, man. Can't wait to see you on the road. Hopefully it's sooner than later. Best to you, your family, and your great mom as well. I'll see you soon.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Stryker.
Okay.
Cheers,
all right.
buddy.
Bye, Tom. Cheers.
This is Tuna on Toast.
Is Tom Morello the best or what? Thank you so much for watching. And if you could subscribe to the podcast, give it a friendly review, I'd appreciate that as well. A lot of great guests are coming up It is Tuna on Toast, and I'm Ted Stryker. See you guys later.